hello. And I was like, oh, thank God. I thought I was like
you thought you were failing miserably.
failing this conversation, but they just couldn't hear me.
But it's such a good lesson.
Hi, y'all. Welcome to Hustle Humbly. It's Alyssa and Katie, and we are two top producing realtors in the Baton Rouge market.
We work for two different companies where we should be competitors, but we have chosen community over competition.
The goal of our podcast is to encourage you to find your own way in business.
So stop comparing yourself and start embracing your strengths.
Hi, hello, Alyssa.
Hello, Katie.
It is episode 66.
Perfect.
The art of negotiation.
Okay.
Can I do a disclaimer at the beginning?
Yeah.
I'm not like a crack negotiator, but we have received many requests for this episode, so we did a little light research, and we're going to give it a go.
And we're going to just talk about what we do.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Like what works for you.
We have managed to negotiate a deal or two.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll just go with that. Also, I was interested to learn this morning when I was prepping that there are multiple podcasts simply about negotiation. So if this doesn't satisfy your needs, people, just
there are resources.
Search it up. There's plenty of them.
So when we were talking about how we're going to talk about what we do.
Yeah.
One of the statistics I found is that if you took your top 5 strengths and put them in order,
okay,
the chance of somebody else having your top 5 strengths
it's like really slim,
is 1 in 33 million.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
Okay. I mean, I feel like this is a good follow-up. Did you think about your 5 strengths? Because you're putting me on the spot. I definitely don't know.
I kind of put some thought into it, but 5 is kind of a lot.
It's a lot to say these are my strengths. But how are you framing this? Like in just who you are as a human or in business? Or
I think I was thinking about it in terms of like business and negotiating.
Got it.
I feel like I am better at handling my emotions.
Okay. You're very even-tempered.
Very even-tempered.
Okay, I like it.
It takes a lot to ruffle my feathers in business because it's business.
Right.
Like, no one's going to hurt my children.
True.
But it's like the way that some people react to things, you would think that something horrible has happened.
Yeah, agree.
And I feel like you can't operate that way.
No.
You won't make it.
You won't.
If you get upset that easily, because there's a lot to get upset about in real estate.
Oh my gosh, yes, there's plenty. But you're going to also just be unhappy. And this is, like we've talked about before, how it eventually leads to burnout. If you go into every negotiation, which is sort of integral in this job, and you're always upset, and you always get your feelings hurt, and you're always annoyed, or you're always just, or if you're the other side of that, if you're the one who's a strong negotiator and kind of a bully, or kind of angry and like approach people meanly, that's going to wear on you too.
Yeah.
All of that wears on your emotions and wears on just your ability to continue. Okay. That's very interesting. I would say one of my top 5 would be listening.
Yeah, you're a good listener.
I'm a good listener.
But you're also a good, like, speaker in that you word things well.
Thank you. I would say that I'm an overtalker. So I have learned in the past that there is one really good negotiation tip that I'll throw out right here in the beginning. Just don't say anything.
Be quiet.
Just be quiet. And like I must have read an article or took a class or whatever it was. And I remember thinking, okay, and they framed it in a way like with a story. And I'm like, I'm going to try that out. I remember this one particular phone call with my own client, seller client, that he was kind of off the rails and I just said nothing. And I think he had maybe listened to the same article because he also said nothing for like a full minute on the phone. And I'm like,
I wouldn't have been able to do it.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I was like, I will not relent. I'm not going to be the one who says the first word. And that's true. You guys you have to say nothing because the other person will get uncomfortable and fill the silence with things that they shouldn't say during a negotiation.
Right. They'll start rambling.
That's why I love showing a for sale by owner. And the seller takes you through the house because I just ask the question.
Yeah.
And I just listen. And then I just be quiet. And they keep on talking. And then I'm like, you are just
telling it all.
Tell it all. Tell it all. But that works.
Yeah. One thing I found really interesting is that most people probably think this episode is about negotiating an offer.
Yeah.
But the more I was thinking about it, there's so much more to it than that.
Yes.
And we're not only just negotiating with the other side.
Right.
We are having to negotiate with our clients.
Yes.
Like, how many times have you had to tell your client, this is what we need to do?
Yeah.
And this is why.
Yeah.
Or this is why we are not asking for this.
Yep.
And this is why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the majority, I feel like I negotiate more with my clients
Yes.
than I do the other side.
I agree. Because I'm constantly having to pull my client back to what is reality, what is acceptable. Let's put ourselves in the other person's shoes. And I think that this is pretty common, and we've talked about it before. I'm not coming at a negotiation from an adversarial place.
No.
I'm coming at it from a win-win. You want to sell your house. I got people who want to buy your house. This should be easy to figure out.
Right.
Or if we can't figure it out, just walk away.
And sometimes, and I do have to watch myself because I think this comes with the volume.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm like, then just cancel it.
Like, I don't.
Like, that's enough.
So that's a good point.
And I have to watch myself.
Because you don't need that transaction to go through, but your client might be hoping and wanting it to go through.
Yeah.
So it is hard. That's probably a good thing to remember. It's not just about what your end goal was. It's
Right.
about everyone else that's in that negotiation.
But like, okay, real life example.
Let's
I just
hear it.
got a repair request that has like 20 things on it.
Okay.
I have the listing.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty obnoxious.
Like
okay?
really tiny stuff.
A bunch of like just tiny things that I know would be a disaster at a final walkthrough.
Right.
Like, oh,
Like,
this
I don't wanna-
faucet still wiggles.
Right.
You said you were going to tighten it.
Because you know what always happens? The plumber shows up and says, it's fixed.
I know, yeah.
But then they come back and they're like, no, it's still
When I
moving.
shake it,
Right. Who does
it
that?
still wiggles.
Are you going to use it that way? Oh, man.
But one item on there was like, remove this tree.
Okay.
I've been to the house several times. I'm not even really sure which
You're
tree.
like, I didn't see the tree.
Yes, and nobody that has shown it or
Mention the tree.
has mentioned the tree. And my seller was like, "Hey, I'm just letting you know, like,
I'm not taking out
we're
the
not
tree.
taking down the tree. We'll work on getting estimates on everything else, but we're not.
Yeah.
we're not." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay." So I messaged the agent back. I was like, "Look, I'm just gonna let you know if the tree's a deal breaker, we're not doing it, and you can just go ahead and cancel because
Right.
we're going to take the next 72 hours to get estimates on everything.
But if you want to move on.
But if you don't want us to get estimates on everything else because of this tree,
yeah, don't waste our time.
yeah, just cancel it.
Yeah.
You know? So it's, you know, I made in my notes that sometimes I want it more than my clients do.
Yes.
Like, I want it to work more than they do.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm like,
is that a competitive thing or is that just
I think some of it is that, and I do communicate this with my sellers, but on a different transaction, say, I know if this doesn't go through,
what the ramifications are?
Yes. I know what it means to go back on the market in
Yep.
November.
Yep.
I know what it means
Yep.
when people are like, why did you go back on the market?
Yeah.
I know how many showings we've had.
Yeah.
How many, did we have any offers during
Right.
that time? We finally have someone.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want,
Because of your market knowledge.
yes,
Yeah.
I know that it is best. And I do my best to communicate that.
Well, I think that's good.
But sometimes I have to just take a step back and
Yeah.
say, Alyssa, if they don't want to do this,
You can't make them.
I can't make them do this.
No. But you have to give them all the data and your whys. You
Yeah.
can't just say, do it.
Do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't
Just
do that. Okay. I also wanted to talk about the podcast that I found this morning. And again, like I said, there are many, was talking about mindset being important when you go into your negotiation.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to believe that it's going to go well, that you're going to, your clients are going to get what they want, that you can, adequately communicate. Like you have to have some baseline beliefs about your mindset and the negotiation process and not be afraid. And that way you come at it with some confidence and don't get, pushed around.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're more likely to succeed if you believe you can succeed.
Right.
Also, in the article I read, it talked about you're always negotiating, right?
Yes.
Was this in your list?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll add my comment.
It's you're always negotiating, whether I think you're negotiating from like literally from your showing. Like if you're on the buyer side, it's going to start all the way from there. It's going to go all the way to the closing table. do not fool yourself into thinking once you're under contract that negotiation has stopped. It's never stopped. But also it was talking about body language. So how you present yourself throughout the whole thing is the negotiation, not just that little moment in time when you're talking about terms and an offer.
Yeah. Negotiations start way before you're writing an offer.
Way before.
I think it goes back to how did you do what you're showing? Did you turn off the lights and lock the door? Or did you tick the sellers off?
Yeah. Did you give them 15 minutes notice and they're already annoyed?
Yes.
Yeah.
How was your feedback?
Yeah.
Was it helpful and polite and professional?
Well, and I have thoughts on this.
Or was it over the top one way or
no?
You can't be overly complimentary, but you can't be like, I hate your house, but hey, I'm going to make you an offer.
Yeah, kind of. Part of me thinks that if I know, like, we go in and my clients are like, we want to make an offer, I don't do the feedback until after I've done the offer.
Right. Same.
I don't think that there's no way you can go with feedback that will get you where you want in your negotiation. If you're too nice and say how great that you love the house and they're like, well, you really want it, we're going to be firm negotiators. If you tell them everything that's wrong and the reason why you're making your lower than list price offer, then they're going to be annoyed. Like, and maybe look at your, what if you end up in a multiple offer?
Okay. So that was going to be my next question is, say you're at the showing and you know that they like it. Obviously you have to act quickly.
Yeah.
I think you have to act quickly no matter what kind of market you're in. The moment a buyer is interested, let's get this done.
Yeah.
Because
you also don't want your buyer overthinking it.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So at that point, I think even when you reach out to the listing agent to say, hey, do you have any offers on this property at this time? Do you have a close date that would best suit your seller? You know, kind of just getting some more information up front to kind of see where they are.
I wrote the exact same thing down. If you are not making that phone call, you've already done a disservice to your client. Like, especially in a multiple offer. I know a lot of markets are super hot right now and everybody's dealing with multiple offers. If you didn't make the phone call to the listing agent that said, hey, you know, first of all, do you have offers?
Right.
Like, let's not all waste our time. But what about the closing date? And tell me where your clients are. Why are they moving? Where are they going? Or just ask some general questions. What is going to be successful for them? Like, do they need a longer close or shorter close? Is it really about the money? Like, what's all of their motivation? If you're not making that phone call, then you're already behind for sure.
And I think too, with that, I serve on our board and I serve on committees, and even just doing this podcast and helping other agents. I think it's important to be somewhat involved in your realtor community on some level.
Yeah.
Because then when people get offers from you, they know they've heard your name, even if they've never met you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I know, like, even just serving on our board of directors, like, sometimes my information is on emails that go out to all 3,000 realtors in our marketplace. But just, it always comforts me when I know of the other agent submitting the offer, because, and it could help you in a multiple offer.
It's helped it for sure in the last probably 5 to 7 years. I've noticed that I can get a contingent offer accepted more easily because people know who I am and have potentially worked with me before. It makes a difference. Your reputation makes a difference in your negotiation.
And that starts when you're not even working with someone.
Yeah.
Like, how do you speak to other realtors?
Right.
Just on a regular encounter, or if you run into them somewhere.
You know what it makes me think of? Our local Facebook group, there are just some people that are always in it complaining and, you know, like upset about stuff.
Yes.
And then if I saw their name come in on an offer on my listing, I might be like, ooh, I don't know.
I don't know if I want to work with this person.
Especially if I'm in multiple offers and I get to maybe pick a different one.
Yes.
Y'all, your behavior follows you all the time.
What you say on social media.
Yep.
What you think you're saying in these private realtor Facebook groups.
Right. Don't
you think
do that.
You're protected because your clients can't see, but your peers can see.
Yes.
And they're going to get to choose, is this the kind of person I want to work with?
Right. Exactly.
Like, you really need to there's no need to say anything negative.
No, there's never. a need for that. And
Yeah.
you really don't need to put it in a public forum.
No.
Even though it's a closed group, that's pretty public.
I can't tell you how many times like things are screenshotted and sent and
All the
laughed.
time.
You know, like look at what's going on in the round table.
It happens all the time to me. I mean, y'all.
Don't be that person.
Don't be that
But it will
person.
ruin your reputation in negotiation.
It'll make it very difficult to negotiate. When I'm thinking about that call to the other agent too in the beginning, I want to know like the motivation of the seller. So I'll ask, why are they moving? If they're kind of like hesitant about it, you know, if they're reload, typically they'll be like, they're moving out of state, you know, like they're just going to tell you they got to sell. But if they're like, I'm gonna try and push it, be like, are they like it's priced a little higher than comps? Are they just trying to see what they can get? Like, I need to know where their head is at before I can even start with an offer.
Right.
And I think that's a step that most agents are missing.
Well, someone asked recently, like, do you offer a little bit off the price and then ask for closing costs every time? And I'm like, it all depends on the data.
It totally
Every
depends on the
offer
data.
I make, I submit with data.
Yeah,
to just say,
I agree.
all of these sellers paid closing costs
Right.
in
So
the
it's
neighborhood.
normal in your neighborhood.
Yes, especially if it's a tricky one. I mean, if it's pretty cut and dry, I may not send all my comps to the other agent.
Right.
I know that you know how to do your job. I don't want to come off
well,
as
if it's
condescending.
priced right.
Yes, but if I have real data to support why my offer is maybe 15,000 under what you're asking.
Yeah.
I think it's important to share that and to say, we do love the house. I don't want our offer to make your sellers think otherwise.
Right.
However, this is the data that we see, and we still want to, I'll maybe make a few notes, like we still want to update the kitchen countertops, and we know the floors need to be refinished. So to do these things, this is why our offer is what it is. And we just wanted to see if it works for you. Yeah. Great.
Right.
You know?
And you can only approach it that way in a you're the only offer situation.
Right.
It's totally different, like two different things. I think this is super important. And you're constantly in the negotiation with especially your sellers.
Yes.
That starts from the listing appointment. Like we're negotiating list price and making repairs and doing, painting. They're going to push back. No seller comes to that appointment and is like, oh, you want to list it 5,000 lower than my neighbor? Great.
Yeah.
Like no one is going to just give that to you. You're negotiating in a way that will get you to the finish line.
Right.
So you have to think about it that way too. But I try to get as much info as I can about a seller when I'm representing the buyer so that I can tell my buyer, this is their motivation. You can't make an offer $20,000 off a list price when they are just testing the market.
Right.
I mean, now, if they're in the middle of a divorce or some sort of, if it's like a lot of times, if it's a secession or something, maybe you could come lower because there's no mortgage in place. And, all these things play into it.
Days on market. How long has it been here?
Day one, we cannot do that.
Is it occupied?
Right.
All these things.
But there's all pieces to the puzzle. You're trying to give, and you've got to give your client all the pieces to the puzzle before they try and make an offer. For the first probably 8 years of my career, I could tell you without a shadow of a doubt whether my buyer was a $50,000 buyer or a $500,000 buyer. They would always want to start $10,000 off a list price.
Oh my gosh.
10. It was almost, it got to be funny to me because I'm like, let me guess, do you want to offer $230 on this $240 house? And they'd be like, yeah. And I'm like,
yeah, I
know.
I know.
So does everybody else. And I think that's a okay method if the data supports it and if there are no other offers. But it's funny to me that buyers aren't going to, without your knowledge and advice, they're not just going to go give full price.
But that's how I feel about giving the buyer the inspection report and saying, let me know what you want to ask for. What do you want to do? It's like total chaos. And they truly want everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I had a home inspection recently, and he at the inspection, he was going through everything, and he was like, yeah, just want to let you know, there's several smoke detectors missing. I found them in the closet. They probably were chirping at 2 a.m. You just need to go get some new batteries. And they're like, oh, okay, whatever. He said, but on the report, it is listed as a safety concern.
Right.
Because by law, that's what I have to do. So I just want to let you know. We get the report, and the safety section is it's like red and it has like lightning bolts. Okay.
Lightning.
Yeah.
You
So
were like,
it's
wait a
like
minute.
it's like these are the safety concerns.
Oh god.
And I get it.
Alert! Alert!
Yes, but by law, that's what they have to do. You know, alert people.
I don't know that the lightning bolts were required by
maybe
law.
just red. You know. But my client was like, "Oh my gosh, we have got to ask them
to do the batteries.
to do the batteries."
No,
And I'm
ma'am.
like, no, we're not gonna. I know this looks scary all of a sudden, but because
my
I had
word.
sent her my draft,
Yes.
which was exactly what we had discussed at the home inspection.
So they saw
We're
that
prepared.
coming. All right.
But when they got the report
They were like,
and you
"Oh,
see
no."
that it's 50 pages long,
They were like, we need more things.
yeah. And so it's
Oh.
just, but that is us negotiating with our client
Yep.
to get them the best results with the seller.
Yeah.
So
Because
that
the
we
seller's
win.
going to take that a lot differently than you did.
Yes.
Oh, a lot differently.
Yes. But it just goes to show if you tell a buyer, hey,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want to offer?
Right.
With no guidance, you're opening yourself up for disaster. And I have found that once you have lost control of the client,
Yeah.
you cannot,
It's hard.
it is so hard to get them back.
No.
Because once they think that they're running the show, they don't
Mhm.
trust you.
Yep.
They don't care about your opinion anymore.
No.
You can't rein them back in.
No. No.
You have to set expectations up front and be firm and let them
Yeah.
know this is how it's going to go.
Right.
And this is the process.
Yeah.
If they don't understand the process, they're going to be messaging you constantly.
Right.
You know, something that I need to work on?
Well, let's hear it.
Like, okay, we make an offer,
Mm-hmm.
or you're this listing agent and you sent a counter offer.
Okay.
Whatever it is. The deadline is 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be, say, we're waiting to hear back on a counter, an offer, a repair request. It doesn't matter. Anything with a deadline.
Yeah.
Just because I have other transactions going on, my buyer, seller, client is like 5 o'clock tomorrow, 5 o'clock tomorrow. So at like 10 a.m. the next day, hey, any word?
Okay.
Noon, hey, any
But
word?
it's 5 o'clock.
3 p.m., hey, any word? It's when it is approaching
Close.
that time frame.
So what do you want to do?
I want to, because I am very much like, the deadline's 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the other side their time.
Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'm not going to be texting them, hey, how's it going over there?
Right.
Hey,
no.
are you going to?
Then you look so needy.
Right. But I feel like I may need to text my client the next morning and say, hey, just want to let you know I haven't heard anything yet.
I'll let you know.
I'll
when
let
I hear
you know
something.
as soon as I hear something.
But you know what? You have to take it a step further sometimes. Let's just say it's a seller who has sent a counteroffer and they're just so anxious to know if it's going to get accepted. And you send them that text in the morning, hey, deadline is 5. I haven't heard anything yet. I promise I'll let you know as soon as I do. But I don't want to reach out to the other agent and make us look so desperate.
That's good.
So now
That's
you've given them the reason. Like, you've
Right.
got to hold
This
your
is-
position in the negotiation. You can't go wavering just because you've sent that offer out there.
I had an agent that did an inspection on my listing on Monday. Today
Okay.
is Thursday. We
Okay.
have not
Gotten
gotten
your repairs.
anything,
Okay.
which is kind of annoying to me because it's not how I operate.
Right.
But in all fairness, they are
they're within their deadline.
their 10 days.
Okay.
So I told I'm fine with it. My seller has called me
Oh, no.
every day. Twice. Is this a bad sign? Well, what do you think they're doing? Do they have questions? Do they have the report yet? I'm like, all I can tell you is that they're in their time frame,
Yeah.
and we have to respect their time frame.
Right.
And this is happening. You know, sometimes you do everything right, and
It still happens.
It still happens.
Yeah.
You know, people have different levels
Of anxiety.
of anxiety,
Yes.
and you just have to
go with it.
help them.
Yep.
And recognize the ones that
Mhm.
have the higher anxiety.
Yeah.
And communicate maybe more frequently with them.
Yeah, I think it's just a proactive, I don't know anything yet.
Yes.
Is all you need.
That's all I need to do. And then it
Yeah.
helps me.
Yep.
It helps them. It also lets them know I am being attentive to you.
Yeah, like I'm right on it.
But then also, like, say the deadline's 5 o'clock and it's 4 o'clock and I haven't heard anything.
I mean, at that point, I feel like I would just like gentle reminder.
Yes.
Hey, are we gonna
if
get
I
something?
remember.
Right. That's the other point.
You know, like I'm sometimes too trusting that the other side is going to.
Yeah, because you definitely don't want your client to be texting and calling you at 5:05.
Right.
Like
being
what happened.
Yes. And I've had that happen once and it was a bad feeling because I was like, okay, but
I
also
know.
on that note, I had one where I learned my lesson. I put the deadline for 5 o'clock. Why
Mhm.
would I put 5 o'clock when I pick up my daughter at 4?
Right.
That was a mistake on my part. So what happened is they responded at like 4:45.
Right. And you weren't
And I
in
didn't,
work mode.
I was not in work mode.
Yeah.
I checked my email like an hour after. And by the time I got to my phone, my client was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And I'm like, oh, my mom brain got the best of
Yeah.
me. So I try to always put deadlines of like 3 o'clock.
Right.
Because I want time to handle this, get it
Mhm.
in.
Yeah.
So be mindful of like your own schedule.
Well, right.
with
Remember that
that.
after that part of the negotiation, they might be sending you a counter, and now all of a sudden at 5 o'clock, you got to your seller or buyer or whatever is going to want to respond right away, possibly.
Mhm.
Then you're having to work outside of that time frame. So I think that's a good tip to keep the deadlines at times when you know you can actually work.
Yes.
Not
It doesn't need to be 9 p.m. deadline.
just because that's 24 hours from now. Like, okay, so a good rule of thumb for a long time, I did, 24-hour response on an offer. If I'm sending you an offer, I want to give you time to respond. Think about your response times too in your negotiation.
Yeah.
Lately, especially if you have a hot property, and I'm sure in these markets that are like crazy, people will give you like a 3 or 4 hour response time. I'm like, well, you're annoying the seller now.
Right.
Because the seller doesn't have time. Everyone is on edge because you're making it seem so over the top urgent. And I get it. Like coming from the buyer side, I understand that you're just trying to get in there and get a response before there is another offer. But at the same time, that you got to give, we've talked about this in another episode. That seller in the morning is going to have a different opinion on that offer than they did within the 4-hour window when they got it.
Yeah.
So if you only give them 4 hours and you're insistent on getting a response, that response might be rejected.
Right.
But in the morning, that response might then, here's a decent counter, or I'll accept this. Or so you've got to give these people some space to get through all the emotions of the negotiation. You can't just force them to get it done in a smaller time frame.
Yeah. And if you're on the receiving end of that, for example, I'm trying to negotiate my way through this 25 item repair request and I have 72 hours.
Yeah, it's hard.
So I emailed the agent and said, I'm letting you know we are not doing the tree. I am working on getting estimates on all the other items, but my goal is to have a response to you within our deadline by 1 p.m. Friday.
Right.
Because that's our deadline.
That's very clear.
I want him to know I'm aware of the deadline. We're working on it.
But you've given me a lot to do.
And I'm doing my best.
Right.
But I'm letting you know ahead of time, 3 days in advance, that this is not happening.
Right. Don't keep asking me.
So, I think it's those little extra drops of communication. If you can just shoot an email and say, hey, just want to let you know I'm working on this.
Right. Communication is key in your negotiation.
And that's all the extra fluff like that is really hard when you're busy.
It's very hard when you're busy.
But I think that it's those little things that can make
oh my God,
a really big difference.
I agree. I completely agree.
And lead to overall less stress because you're not being interrupted. If you don't send the proactive text, you will receive the annoying, anxious
at a time when you were not prepared for it.
Yeah.
Hello, friends. We are so excited that so many of you are using the template course and the reviews are just pouring in, letting us know that it has helped your business as much as it has helped our business.
Yes, listen to this review. Thank you so much for providing this wealth of information, knowledge in template form. So far, I've used a handful and received positive feedback like, this is so professional, or I really appreciate how organized you are. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah,
your clients are actually going to say that.
Yes.
All right, here's another one. Thank you so much for this. I can't tell you how many times I've started this and how many notebooks of samples and notes I had. I have ADHD and it is super hard to stay focused on getting it done. Having it all in one place is going to make it so nice.
That is what we're here for.
I know, just look, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just use these.
Yeah, nice and simple, easy, ready to go, ready for you to put your own logo on, make it sound like you. So head over to hustlehumblypodcast.com/course and check it out.
That's right.
And you're going to enjoy them. You're going to love them.
You're
it's
going
to change your life.
Literally fired my assistant. They are the best. Okay,
enjoy the template.
Yes, enjoy.
Okay. I want to talk about, I read this article in the Business Insider.
Okay.
And this one, because the title spoke to me, negotiations start, wait, hold on. It was called 9 Negotiation Tips for People Who Hate Negotiating.
Oh,
So if you've come to us with a distaste for negotiating, but a necessity within your job,
I'm kind of that way.
I don't love it either. And you know why? It's because we're generally nice.
Yeah.
And so it is hard to navigate a negotiation without getting a little forceful sometimes.
Right.
So it's not supernatural. But there are 9 tips, and they were pretty decent. Number 1, this was in the Business Insider magazine, if anyone's looking. Number 1, negotiating is separate from conflict.
Yes.
So that's the win-win. Someone doesn't have to win and lose. It is not a conflict. You're both trying to do the same thing. So this important tip is you have to keep your goal in mind. And it would be helpful if you knew the other party's goal as well. So if the seller's goal is to move 3 months from now, that's what you need to know their goal. Okay, so negotiating, not conflict. Number 2, be optimistic.
Yeah.
I like that one. Believe you're going to succeed. So that's the mindset one again. 3, show up prepared. Show up prepared.
Yeah.
Anticipate questions and know what is possible in a situation. I think this is great in a inspection negotiation. If they come to you with a list of 25 things, your seller gets overwhelmed. At least when you present it to them, say, hey, listen, most of these things don't look very expensive. You can choose to do some or not do some, but you can also say, here's $500, you do it.
Yeah.
But if you don't sellers don't automatically know that's an option.
Right.
So you need to know what the options are and give them the possible outcomes. You also need to tell them that the other party can cancel. I think we're not also so good sometimes in the negotiation as pointing out, hey, the alternative to making this work is going back on the market and being stale. Yeah. Or, people wondering why you couldn't get it together during inspection. Is something wrong with the house? Like, it's just, there's a lot of psychology involved in not getting through. Once you're under contract, I hate nothing more than having to put a house back on the market.
It makes me so sad. You want to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah.
But at some point, I'm willing to.
Yeah, well, it has to go that way. Okay, so be prepared. Number 4, use your active listening skills.
Listen.
Listen. Yeah. It says ask questions and repeat answers. And you may remember from our episode, I think, on dealing with emotions, it was a similar tip on you ask questions, repeat back the answers. And that way people know that you're listening. Don't just listen, be actively listening. Okay, number 5, ask for what you want. Even if they started, and you've got to get what you wanted on the table. Yes. So this kind of made me think of, like when your listing is your offer, right? So my house is listed for $250. That's on the table. I'm telling you, $250 is what I want.
Sure.
So the buyer makes their, request. It's out there. Sometimes sellers want to go back at full price, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
You've already put that out there. It's on the table.
Right.
We don't need to go back with that.
We already offered that.
We're already good with that. Yeah. So we know that they don't want to pay that.
And they said no.
Then they're like, no. And I'm like, you've got to give me something. Like, there's got to be somewhere you can go.
How many showings have we had?
Right.
How long has it been?
Right. Here's the data. Every other house in your neighborhood sold 10 days ago, and you're still in the market. So approach it from that.
Right.
Okay.
I had a agent say one time, and I've loved this. It's so funny. Right now, this is the only person asking us to the dance.
Yes.
So, do you want to go to the dance?
Yeah, right. Like, or maybe we need to talk about a different document, and that would be withdrawing your listing from the market.
Right. Right.
Which is okay.
Yeah, we could do that too.
But we got to pick. All right. Number 6, remember you are always negotiating during a negotiation. So they talked about body language, and we've kind of covered this already. Number 7, identify and address interests, the whys of what they want. So someone comes to you with a crazy closing date or, closing costs or whatever it is. What is the why? Are you getting an RD loan or a VA loan? Do you need all the closing costs?
Right.
You have there's got to be a why before. You can't just go counter because you want to counter.
Sure.
You have to know. So that is our responsibility, though, to relay to our seller. Hey, this offer is VA. That means it's 100% loan. They don't have the money to do their closing costs. If you want to counter the price, that's okay, but we can't counter these closing costs. And if that's a deal breaker for you, then we need to just reject. Like, we can't waste everyone's time because you don't know the rules. This is my favorite also. I have buyers all the time do this to me. All right, the house is listed for $250. We make an offer for $240. No closing costs. Just straight $240.
Okay.
Seller comes back at $245.
Yeah, I know where you're going with
And then my buyer says, "Okay, I'll pay the $245, but I want $5,000 in closing costs." And I have to
Your
say,
offer's $240.
and I had to say, that's exactly $240. As the seller doesn't care how you break these numbers up.
Right, it's the same.
And honestly, I just don't know that buyers even think about it that way.
They don't.
Because
They
to
don't.
them, it's now I'm paying $245, but I'm like, it's the same. It's
Yeah.
the same. But it also is a good point when you're presenting that offer. If you need closing costs, then you better make that price as close to list as you can.
And I try to let the agent know, here's our offer based on the comps. This is why. I just want to let you know that closing costs are very important to my buyer.
Yeah. Yes. And when I'm countering as the listing agent and there's, come down on price plus closing costs, I typically ask the question, is price more important or is it the closing costs? I need to know. Like if they need the closing costs, then I'm just going to counter the price.
I try to always encourage my sellers to only counter price.
Yeah.
Like what price do we need to do
To cover all the terms.
so that way when I deliver it,
Just doing the price.
I'm like, hey, we've agreed to the home warranty and the termite report.
Look at how agreeable we
and
are.
the refrigerator, washer, dryer.
All these things.
And your closing costs. But that's also why when I write offers, I don't put all that
You don't
garbage
put all it
in
in
there.
there, right?
No. I'm like, price, closing costs.
Yeah.
Maybe like, refrigerator, washer, dryer,
Right.
which is just a standard thing. But we're not going to get into terp inspections.
No.
We're not going to get into home warranties.
Right.
I mean, it's hard for a listing agent to deliver an offer
When the laundry list is long.
Yeah, it just makes the sellers like
Because-
anything else.
But and that's why as the listing agent, I always send their net with the offer. So I'm
Yes.
like, I know it looks like a long list, but the bottom line number is exactly what we were anticipating
yes,
at the beginning.
Right.
And I will typically point that out. This net is either the same, maybe sometimes it's higher and they'll get fussy because there's such a long list, right?
Right.
I'm like, but this number is higher than
I'm
what we
doing
were
all
expecting.
this. Yeah,
So if you get approached with an offer like that, then I think it's wise. You've got to tell them the bottom line because they'll just be like, this is so much stuff. I don't want to buy a $500 warranty. I don't want to pay for a termite certificate. The termite certificates absolutely crack me up.
me too.
Because when I started 15 years ago, the required Louisiana purchase agreement said the seller has to provide a termite inspection.
Yes, and that's why they're asked for still.
Exactly. It was in there. So the seller had to show up to closing with a termite inspection that said it was free and clear of termites. But it was allowed if your house had termites, they could treat it and then get the clear, termite certificate and it'd be fine. Well, imagine you show up to closing as a buyer and discover that the house had termites, but that's okay. They treated it.
Yeah,
so
it's fine now.
we're fine. And you didn't know that before. So at whatever point in the last, 10 years, they take that out, right?
Yes.
And they change it to what I think is very logical. All the inspections are the buyer's responsibility.
Anything you want.
You can inspect anything. But especially the agents that were more veterans and used to that would continue to put that in there. As far as I know, the only required loan that's going to make the seller do it is VA. All the other loan types,
Right.
buyer can do that. And if you don't write it here's a little interesting tidbit. If you don't write that in the contract, seller to provide wood destroying insect report, whether you get one or not, the lender doesn't care.
No, they don't.
But if
care.
you write it in the purchase agreement,
Now
the lender
they're
needs to
involved.
see it.
Yeah.
And now if it didn't come back clean, whether that's a problem for your buyer or not, it's a problem for their loan.
Yes.
So that's one of those things that don't add extra terms. Just clean as
Keep it
as
clean.
possible. Okay.
I had a seller that their house was listed at like $725. And we've been on the market. Okay. Finally, we get an offer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like $675.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh well. But
Somebody's coming to the dance.
the data,
Yeah.
like the number of showings with no offers is
Yeah.
letting me know, well, this is our first offer after all these showings.
A lot of showing.
and it might be what the market is telling us. Okay, so let's pause. This is emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's emotional for the sellers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's our job to remind them that you've been begging someone to just make an offer.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And I know that this is not the number you were hoping, but we have got to work it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And to remind them that this person is not here to be the bad guy.
Right.
I heard in one of the podcasts I was listening to that the number one detrimental thing you can do during negotiations is make up stories about the other side.
Oh.
So,
like in your own mind.
Yeah, so the sellers are like, who is this person? Who do they think
they are?
And you kind of have to say, who do they think they are making an offer on your house
that you've been trying to sell?
that we've been trying to sell?
Right. Oh,
Let's see what we can do. But and it's fine line because you need to be the voice of reason to your sellers,
Yeah,
who are emotional
mm-hmm.
about maybe the home they've lived in for 20 years,
yeah,
or whatever. But you have to be the voice of reason that says, listen, I know that you feel this way. However,
mm-hmm.
this is like the only person that's been willing to even write
right.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we should appreciate them.
Yeah.
So anyway, they were like, we're not selling $1 below 700. Okay. They're like, the thought of us even being in the sixes like
is a deal breaker.
Is it we can't wrap our brain around it.
Okay.
You know? So we countered at like, 710 and they came back at like 690 and we countered at like 705. And the buyer's agent called me and was like, okay, Alyssa, my buyer is having like a mental block. He's like, I just can't pay 700.
Right. So someone needs to do 699.
I said, do you think you could get him to write it up for like 699.9? And he was like, I think I could. I said, and I know my people have said,
can't do it.
Not doing $1. Okay.
Right. Okay.
But I'm telling him.
I'm so excited to hear how this goes.
I'm telling him, I'm like, just write it up for 699.9.
Uh-huh.
And I called my seller and they were at first like, for real? $100? Like he's going to do this over. Forget that. And I said, okay. So are we going to walk away and you're going to be like, I showed him over. I showed that buyer who's the boss. He's not getting my house.
Right.
Over $100. I said, how about this? If you will do this, I will give you $100 bill at closing. I will do that for you.
And what did they say?
And what ended up happening is she was like, let me call you. I'm like,
she's like, I have to sit on this.
Yeah, because in the moment, you're not
like, I said.
Yes, and you're not thinking like, okay, so you're gonna keep your $700,000 house.
Yeah, those aren't exactly easy to sell.
So you're gonna be sitting on your couch, not making your move forward with your $100 bill, saying, "I won." Mm-hmm. Like, no, you did. You actually lost.
You lost.
You lost because we are the ones wanting to sell.
Yeah.
And you were like, I showed them.
Yeah.
How dare, like I beat them away with a stick.
Oh my gosh.
So we agreed.
Okay.
And honestly, after like 2 hours.
Oh, she was like, fine.
Yes. But it's hard because nobody wants to feel like they're being taken advantage of.
No.
And they want to feel like they're being fought for.
Yep.
But we have closed this gap, which started off
pretty big.
Quite large.
Yeah.
And in the end, do you want to keep your house and keep your utilities and keep mowing your grass?
Right.
And have 2 mortgages or lose out on the house that you're buying or whatever the case may be. And so it's like, sometimes we have to be that voice of reason that says,
what was the original offer? $675?
Yeah.
So y'all did literally split the difference.
Yes.
But off by $100.
Right.
The buyer won.
The buyer, quote unquote, won. Because they got their $100.
Go for it.
But you know what? Like at the closing table, the buyers were like the sweetest people.
Oh, and the seller felt happy.
And the seller sat at the closing table and shared everything about the house with them.
I love it.
And even though I knew telling that agent to write it up for $699.9 was gonna like tick off my sellers,
but at $695 they wouldn't have done it.
No,
$699 they probably wouldn't have done it.
No,
They were mad about the $100.
Yes.
And you were like, oh.
But like, that's when we have to be the voice of reason to say, are you going to want to be sitting on your couch,
right,
holding your $100 bill, saying, I won?
Right.
When the reality is your house is still on the market.
Yeah.
Nobody else has come along.
Yes. I think this part of the negotiation is where you also need to insert yourself and say, if we can't make this work, I'm okay if you need to remove the house from the market.
Yes.
Because I don't think we're going to do better than this.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense for you to keep showing it and for me to keep working and all of these things.
And I think that when negotiations start, thanks to social media and the internet and whatever else, people are stalking the other people.
Oh my God, yes.
I looked up the buyer on Facebook and he's an attorney, so he has money.
Oh yeah.
Or whatever they say.
You know? My God, I have some clients that hardcore stalk the sellers. I'm like, whoa.
Yes. And thanks to like Ring doorbells and things where people are listening to you talk about the house and what you're saying. It's just like, oh, this is painful.
Oh, I had a listing in the summer and the Ring doorbell caught. And of course, not only did it catch the video, but my sellers listened to the audio and they were talking, the lady who looked at the house, she loved it. And she took a picture on the front porch at the end of their showing and how this was going to be her house. And she was so excited. Well, do you think they needed to be flexible in their negotiation, my seller? No, not at all. Y'all, everything you say and do can be recorded while you're in a house.
I had one of my sellers call me, like the home inspection on their house was from like 3 to 5. They called me at 5 and were like, hey, they're going to cancel.
They heard
and I was like, how do you know? And she was like, we heard them on the door. We were listening. And the dad that came to the home inspection like hates the house.
Oh no.
And I was like, wow, technology
is really making this
tough. And sure enough, that night I got a cancellation.
Were you like, well, at least I wasn't surprised?
And I don't have to break the news to my sellers.
They already, hey, that's kind of nice though.
They heard everything.
You already know.
But it's like, I try to always bring people's, because how many times have I heard, I don't want the buyer to win. I don't want, this seller is being unreasonable. And it's like, all we can do is see what is the house worth to you personally. Do you like it enough to pay this much?
Right.
Are you, Mr. Seller, ready to move enough? Is it worth it if you add together your mortgage payments and your utilities and where you're going? And it doesn't, we as agents have to do the best that we can to take their brain off of the people.
You agree.
And keep it very factual.
And goal-oriented. You want to buy a house.
Yes.
You want to sell a house.
Yes.
The end. The rest of this doesn't matter.
That is the goal. We all have the same goal.
Yeah.
But they want to make everybody out to be the villain.
Right.
Like, how dare you get an inspection on my house and tell me something's wrong with it?
Yeah. I know. That's tough. Okay. There was two things left in the tips.
Okay.
Number 8, link concessions to things you want. Like a yes. If.
Yeah.
So, yes, I will give you the refrigerator if you take out this home warranty. Or, yes, I will do this repair if whatever. And number 9, respectfully say no.
Yeah.
And then plan a time to revisit the conversation if the parties can't agree now. So that's the same thing as what we're saying.
Okay.
If you can't agree now, if it seems like a no, and this just happened to me. I have a buyer wanting to make an offer on a listing that I would say is somewhat overpriced, but kind of tough to comp. And he makes his offer. It's way too low. I don't expect that the seller's going to take it. They don't, but they do counter. We have like an open negotiation for a minute, and then it doesn't work. He's at his max. Seller, it just keeps coming back with the same. Look, y'all, but the seller has come back 2 or 3 times with the same counter.
Please, that's what it is.
Please stop sending more counters. They don't want to go any lower. But here's where it got interesting. Because my guy was still way too far off from what the seller kept countering, like 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, that's it. Because he wanted to go back again. I'm like, no, we're done. If you want to pay what he's countering right now, that's the option. If not, we need to let it go and revisit later. And he was like, okay, fine. Well, a couple of weeks went by. And then he was like, still, I've looked at some property nearby, like the vacant land, and I really do think the house is maybe worth this to me, right?
Sure.
But, he's like, if we could just get it at this number, which was way higher than he had been, I would consider it. And it was, again, it was like he wants to be in the 230s. They're listed at 250, and the counters had ended up in the 240s. So I went back to the agent and I said, hey, look, my guy's willing to go into the 230s. Do you think that's going to work for the seller? And we sort of opened the line of communication again. Don't you know, under contract now.
Wow.
So, but we let it go.
Yeah.
Everything expires. We say thank you, and I very politely told the agent, thank you so much. We are, I'll keep you posted if something happens with the seller and he changes his mind. Let me know, and I let it go.
I wrote down that you have to be at peace with your decision, and I tell that to my clients too.
Yes,
especially in a multiple offer situation. And I think I won't go into this too much because I think we covered it in the offers episode.
Yeah.
But in that situation, I tell my clients, all I can do is show you the facts, but you have to decide what is it worth to you.
Yep.
And we have to know ahead of time our limits. Try.
Yeah.
And if I have to call you and say, hey, we didn't win.
Right.
You have to say, wow, that just really wasn't meant to be.
That's not the house for us.
That's not the house for us. And you have to prepare them for that. I said, I don't want to call you and you say, dang, I wish we would have gone 1,000 more.
Oh, I had a buyer lose a house over a refrigerator once.
Wow.
And they were so upset.
It happens.
But the good news is you just take those stories and then you have them next time. And that's exactly why you have the confidence to say, do you want to lose a house over $100?
Right.
Or do you want to lose a house over a fridge? It's okay if that's
if
your limit.
That's fine.
That's what I have to say. It's okay if that's it. If that's your breaking point, I'm okay with that. But I want you to do the soul searching to decide if that's really the breaking point. Is the fridge really the end? Like I can't go beyond, because it's $1,000.
Yeah.
A used fridge. I mean, it's not a lot.
Right.
Okay. I've gotten all my notes done.
I had a agent recently tell me she was sending me an offer, blah, blah. She was someone I knew, so I guess she felt comfortable, but this is a good lesson.
Oh, no.
She was making comments, they're a little difficult.
About the buyer.
Yes.
Her buyer. What row?
She was like, they're both engineers, and I'm in my brain going, nope, I don't want to.
I can't.
If you're telling me your client is difficult,
and an engineer,
2 engineers, nope. I know how this inspection is going to go.
Yeah.
I need to prepare my seller that their house is about to be inspected by an engineer and that they're already difficult. Whereas if she wouldn't have said a thing,
you wouldn't have known.
I wouldn't have even been on guard about it.
Yeah.
We would have just, and it did hurt us in the long run, or if you're like, if I ask an agent, like, hey, who are they pre-approved? Oh, I don't know who their lender is, but they told me they're pre-approved.
No.
That's an issue. There are things that agents say.
Oh, yes.
That professional experienced agents hear.
Right. And pick up on.
And it affects
the negotiation.
It affects the negotiation big time. Like,
oh, red flags.
There's
so many red flags. But you only know them after time and experience.
Yeah.
Or luckily we're telling you some red flags.
But I think as agents, not only are we here to shield our clients from what's happening emotionally, but we don't need to be blabbing our mouths to the other agents.
There has to be buffer.
No matter how friendly.
Right.
Keep things very black and white.
Oh my gosh.
There doesn't need to be a bunch of details and gray area and fluff. It just needs to be like, hey, we love the house. Here's our offer based on this. Oh, great. This is, and it is our job to stay calm and to be the good communicators.
Right.
And let our clients feel the feels.
Yeah.
And then we just manage the feels.
Yeah.
But we don't feed the feels.
Nope. Don't feed them.
Don't feed them at all.
No.
This was good.
So good. Okay. I hope that it helps people.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it will.
It helped me.
Listen. It helped you? Perfect. The biggest number one tip for me here is listen and let the other person fill. If you want a real negotiation tip, let the other person fill in the silence.
Yeah.
You will die.
At what they say.
Oh my gosh. And you will die when you realize what you've been saying in the space. Don't fill that space, friends. Don't fill it.
One time I was on mute. I had muted myself.
Okay.
And I was talking, but I don't know. I just kept talking. not realizing that they couldn't hear me. And I would say, like, you know what I mean?
And they weren't
And
saying
they
anything.
didn't say anything. So then I just kept talking. And then I realized, then finally they were like, hello. And I was like, oh, thank God. I thought I was like
You thought you were failing miserably.
failing this conversation, but they just couldn't hear me.
But it's such a good lesson.
I would have failed them. Just be quiet.
You were filling it up. You're like, oh no, they didn't
Because
respond.
I was like, I mean, if you really think about it, blah, blah.
And you just get, I'm an over talker. So like, this is an important tip for me to like, not fill the silence. Just don't, because I want to talk.
I was so relieved when I looked at my phone and
Thank
saw
God.
that I was on mute.
That's
Like,
amazing.
They didn't hear any of that.
Thank
Good.
goodness. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's do a toast.
Okay.
Before we toast, I do want to say a lot of people did request this episode, but specifically I had written down Casey Gray and Emily Ness. So we love them. Thank you for requesting. We want you guys to send us the request. It's
This
very
came
helpful.
in a few times.
Yeah. Okay. So today's toast. Let me see here, friends. Okay. We have a toast. From Christina Tracy. And I don't know where she is. I am so sorry. Christina would love to toast her dear friend, Danielle Blair. She's a devoted Hustle Humbly listener and practices all that we preach.
Yay.
We're both new to the business, and she has had such a huge real estate week after months of patience and focusing on professional and personal growth.
Oh, that's so good.
I can't think of a more deserving, kind person.
All the hard work pays off.
I know. We're so proud of Danielle. So cheers to Danielle. That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Okay. Bye, friends.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Hustle Humbly podcast. Let us know who we should toast to for the next episode.
Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Hustle Humbly Podcast. If you have an episode, topic, or question, please email us at hustlehumblypodcast@gmail.com.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. See you next week. Bye.
This is the good life.